So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS.
Yeah.
And then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
From injecting Eazy-E with a deadly virus to literally running a man over on camera, Suge Knight's violent legacy has been captured more than once. Today, we are breaking down the murders tied to Suge Knight that were caught on camera. Let's begin with the 2015 hit and run at Tam's Burgers. January 29, 2015, Compton, California. The hood that birthed NWA and half the realest rappers that ever touched a mic. Suge Knight pulls up to Tam's Burgers in his big red pickup truck, already heated about some Hollywood. See, they was filming that NWA movie straight out of Compton. And word on the street was that the confrontation stemmed from disputes related to the filming of the NWA biopic Straight Out of Compton, and Homeboy was not feeling how they was about to portray his gangster on the big screen.
And that's what that was about. But then clearly a physical altercation happens, and I can't remember, words were said that instigate. I think Suge talked about somebody who was in the vicinity, like kind of, I know he's gonna hear me say this, and that's what started the altercation.
And Bone kind of admitted to having a little bit of a grievance with Suge, you know what I mean?
Standing in that parking lot was two dudes. CL Bone Sloan, some actor cat working on the film, and Terry Carter, a 55-year-old OG businessman who was actually trying to play peacemaker between Knight and these Hollywood folks. These wasn't no random victims. Suge knew exactly who these brothers was. Now check this out. The surveillance cameras at this burger spot caught everything, and I mean everything. This footage is so brutal, so cold-blooded that when you watch it, you understand why the street's been scared of this dude for decades. The video depicts Knight reversing over Sloan first, then driving forward over both men, killing Carter, and severely injuring Sloan. Let me paint this picture for you real clear, because the details is what separate the real from the fake. This wasn't no panic move. This wasn't some scared cat trying to get away. This was some calculated cold-blooded. The surveillance footage shows Knight backing up on purpose, running over Sloan with the back of his truck first. Then, and this is the part that made even the hardest street cats cringe, he shifts that truck into drive and runs over both these dudes again. Terry Carter, a father and businessman who was just trying to keep the peace, got killed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. CL Sloan got up bad but survived to tell the story. And Suge, this cat Knight, fled the scene but turned himself in later that day, probably because his lawyers told him that surveillance footage made running pointless. The legal game moved fast on this one. Knight initially faced murder and attempted murder charges, but pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter in September 2018. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison in October 2018. Knight claimed self-defense, alleging he was fleeing an ambush, but prosecutors argued intent based on the video. Now, here's what makes this case particularly cold. The graphic footage was released publicly by a Los Angeles court in April 2015 and has been analyzed in media reports. This ain't no rumors or he said, she said. This is straight up video evidence of Suge Knight using his whip as a weapon to body a man in broad daylight. Footage became the main evidence in the case. And when you peep it, which I don't recommend unless you got a strong stomach, you can see exactly why prosecutors said this was straight murder. It became central evidence in the case showing the truck striking the victims twice. This is our starting point. Real recognize real. This is what we know for certain shoot capable of when them cameras is rolling. But as we about to see, this 2015 situation might not have been his first time catching a body on camera. It might just have been the first time he got caught slipping in the digital age. The Eazy-E confession. Dude gets on TV and basically says he killed a legend. Now we about to dive into some conspiracy that's been haunting the hip-hop streets for over 20 years. In 2003, right after Sugar got out the pin, this dude went on Jimmy Kimmel Live and said something that still got the hood talking to this day. Picture this. Kimmel trying to be funny, cracking jokes about wearing a bulletproof vest cause he interviewing the big bad Suge Knight. What Knight said back has been replayed, analyzed, and debated in every barber shop, corner store, and hood gathering since it aired. And Kimmel joked about wearing a bulletproof vest. Knight responded,
They got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS.
Yeah.
And then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
you know what I mean? Yeah, the audience gasped like they just witnessed some real street Kimmel looks shook and Suge Knight just kept talking cool as a cucumber, like he ain't just basically confessed to murdering one of rap's founding fathers by injecting him with HIV-infected blood. For y'all young cats who might not know the full story about Eazy-E, let me school you real quick. Eric Wright aka Eazy-E was the realest cat in NWA and owned Ruthless Records. He was also Suge Knight's biggest rival in the game. Eazy-E died on March 26, 1995 at age 30 from AIDS-related pneumonia shortly after a public diagnosis. The timing was sus as hell to anybody who understood street politics. Eazy-E announced his AIDS diagnosis and died within weeks. That was unusually fast, even for the 90s when cats didn't know much about the disease. But here's the thing, no video exists of his death or any injection, and medical records confirm natural progression of the disease. But the beef between Knight and Eazy was real as they come, documented in the streets and in the media. Theory originated from rivalries between Death Row and Ruthless, including business disputes and violence. Knight and Eazy-E had a feud with allegations Knight used intimidation tactics. Now, why do people call this a killing on camera? The on camera refers to Knight making the statement during a televised interview, not the act itself. It ain't that the alleged murder was filmed, it's that Suge appeared to confess to that on national television in front of millions of people. This conspiracy theory got so much traction that it survived for decades in the hip-hop community. The interview clip resurfaced virally in 2015 amid Straight Outta Compton's success and again in 2025 when Knight reiterated rumors from prison. But let's separate the real from the fake for a minute. Multiple people who was tight with Eazy-E have said this theory is. Figures like Ice Cube and Eazy-E's daughter have dismissed the injection claim as baseless. Medical evidence supports AIDS progression and there ain't no physical evidence supporting the injection theory. But the streets ain't convinced, and there's a reason for that. Suge Knight's reputation for violence was already legendary by 1995. His methods of persuasion in the music industry was the stuff of hood legends. When somebody with Knight Street credentials makes statements like he did on Kimmel, hood listens and remembers. YouTube videos and social media often sensationalize it with titles like, Suge Knight admits killing Eazy-E on camera, turning it into clickbait. And that's exactly what happened. The 2003 interview been viewed millions of times with countless breakdown videos and street analysis. Whether you believe Knight actually bodied Eazy-E or not, what's undeniable is that he went on national TV and strongly suggested that he did. And in the world of hip-hop, where respect and fear is currency, that suggestion might have been just as powerful as the actual act. The Tupac setup theory. Now we about to enter the most controversial territory in all of hip-hop history. Straight up. September 7, 1996, Las Vegas, Nevada. Tupac Shakur, the realest MC to ever bless a microphone, gets lit up in a drive-by while sitting in the passenger seat of a BMW driven by none other than Suge Knight himself. The official story is well known in the streets. Tupac Shakur was shot in a drive-by in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996 while riding in a BMW driven by Suge Knight in an alleged shooter's own admission.
He leaned over on the window, rolled down the window, popped.
He died 6 days later on September 13, 1996. The shooting followed some drama at the MGM Grand and Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, Anderson's uncle and a Crips member, was arrested in 2023 for Tupac's murder and has pleaded not guilty. But here's where the conspiracy gets real thick and why mad cats in the hood believe Suge Knight orchestrated the murder of his own biggest moneymaker. The theory goes like this. Some theories suggest Knight orchestrated Tupac's murder to prevent him from leaving Death Row Records to start his own label, as Tupac was reportedly planning to do. Another motive proposed is that Tupac's death would make him more commercially valuable as a martyr, boosting Death Row's profits. Let's examine the street evidence that got conspiracy theorists convinced. First, there's the business angle that every hustler understands. Rumors circulated that Tupac had recorded enough material to fulfill his contract with Death Row and was planning to leave, which angered Knight. This is supported by Afeni Shakur's lawsuit against Death Row to negate Tupac's contract, citing unpaid royalties. Think about that for a hot minute. Tupac Shakur was Death Row's golden goose, their meal ticket to the top. If he bounced from the label, it would have been catastrophic for Knight's empire. And Knight wasn't exactly known for letting cats walk away from Death Row without consequences. You feel me? Then there's the suspicious circumstances of Knight being right there in the car when it went down. Critics argue Knight's presence in the car during the shooting gave him a perfect alibi. It's the perfect setup, they say. Who would suspect the dude sitting right next to the victim? But here's where it gets even more twisted. A 2017 documentary endorsed by Knight suggested he was the intended target, with his ex-wife Sharitha Golden and former security head Reggie Willis Jr. plotting to seize control of death row. So according to Knight himself, he wasn't the mastermind. He was supposed to be another casualty. This theory claims that Sharitha Golden and Reggie Willis Jr. hired Long Beach Crips, including rapper Lil 1/2 Dead, to kill Knight and Tupac. But when confronted with these allegations, Sharitha denied the claims, stating, "If I wanted to kill Suge, he did." The gang connection adds another layer to this conspiracy that makes sense to anybody who understands street politics. Knight's affiliation with the mob Pyro Bloods and his integration of gang members into death row's operations fueled speculation that he manipulated gang conflicts to orchestrate the hit. Some insiders from the death row camp have pointed to Knight's behavior that Knight as suspicious as hell. Former death row associate Mob James criticized Knight for not stopping Tupac from attacking Anderson, suggesting Knight knew retaliation was likely. It raises the question, did Knight knowingly put Tupac in harm's way? The on-camera aspect of this case comes from the security footage at the MGM Grand, which captured the altercation that allegedly led to the shooting. While the actual drive-by wasn't filmed, the events that set everything in motion were captured on casino surveillance cameras. Now, let's look at the evidence against this theory. Knight's injury. A bullet fragment grazed his head, and his emotional claims of Tupac being his favorite person in a 2025 interview with People cast doubt on his involvement. Would Knight really risk his own life in such a plan? Retired LAPD Detective Chris Carroll dismisses this, noting it would be illogical for Knight to risk his own life in a drive-by. However, he did imply that Knight knew who ordered the hit, but was unwilling to reveal the name.
You're talking about Suge?
Yeah, Suge.
Well, yeah, well, some days he said he'll never talk, but other days he says who did it, you know. I remember one, he was getting a divorce and said it was his ex-wife that did it.
And recently with Keith D's 2018 confession and 2023 arrest point to the Southside Crips, specifically Orlando Anderson, as responsible for Tupac's murder in retaliation for the MGM Grand fight. It seems like the gang retaliation theory got the most weight, but street cats ain't convinced. They point to cats like former LAPD Detective Russell Poole and filmmaker Nick Broomfield alleged Knight orchestrated Tupac's murder, citing his control over death row and potential financial motives. Even Snoop Dogg, a former death row artist, also accused Knight of involvement. Whether you believe Knight set up Tupac's murder or not, what's undeniable is that his actions that night, allowing or encouraging the MGM Grand altercation, then driving Tupac straight into enemy territory, played a role in the events that led to the death of a hip-hop legend. The notorious Big retaliation hit. 6 months after Tupac got murdered, another rap legend got his life taken in Los Angeles. The notorious Big, Christopher Wallace, got smoked in a drive-by shooting on March 9, 1997. And according to multiple street theories and police investigations, Suge Knight was the mastermind behind this hit as payback. The notorious Big was killed in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles on March 9, 1997, 6 months after Tupac's death. The shooting occurred as Biggie left a party at the Peterson Automotive Museum with Sean Diddy Combs in a nearby vehicle. The official investigation ain't never resulted in no charges, but that ain't stopped multiple law enforcement cats from pointing the finger directly at Suge Knight. A prominent theory advanced by retired LAPD Detective Russell P. and former FBI agent Phil Carson claims Knight orchestrated Big E's murder as revenge for Tupac's death, possibly with the help of corrupt LAPD officers moonlighting for death row. Here's where this case gets particularly gangster. Unlike Tupac's shooting, which was described as some wild gang, Big E's murder was precise and professional as hell. Unlike Tupac's shooting, described as a gangbanger attack with 15 bullets fired chaotically, Big E's murder was precise with 4 shots from a 9mm pistol, suggesting a professional hitman. The theory is that Knight allegedly believed Bad Boy Records, led by Diddy, was involved in Tupac's murder, prompting him to retaliate by targeting Big E. And according to retired LAPD Detective Greg Kading, Knight didn't just want revenge, he paid cold hard cash for it. Retired LAPD Detective Greg Kading claimed Knight paid FA $13,000 for the hit based on testimony from Knight's girlfriend, Teresa Swan.
She was involved. I think Suge Knight orchestrated it through his, at the time, girlfriend / baby mama.
The alleged trigger man was Wardell Puy F.A., a mob Peru member with tight connections to death row records. F.A. got murdered in 2003, conveniently silencing him forever. But before his death, multiple sources had pointed to him as the shooter. What makes this case particularly damaging for Knight is the level of corruption allegedly involved. Poole and Kading alleged that corrupt LAPD officers, including David Mack, worked off-duty for death row and helped cover up Big E's murder. This wasn't just some street hit. According to these theories, it was a coordinated effort involving dirty cops. The corruption allegations got more credibility recently when new documents uncovered in 2023 reportedly support this, showing officers obstructed the investigation to protect death row figures. These wasn't just random cops looking the other way. These were officers allegedly on death row's payroll. The Wallace family wasn't buying the official investigation either. The Wallace family's $400 million wrongful death lawsuit against the LAPD in 2007 alleged that corrupt officers were complicit in Big E's murder. While the lawsuit was dismissed in 2010, it kept the conspiracy theories alive and brought more attention to the alleged cover-up. The on-camera aspect of this case is more circumstantial than the others. While the actual shooting wasn't captured on film, the events leading up to it were documented by various security cameras around the Peterson Automotive Museum. More importantly, the conspiracy gained traction through various televised interviews and documentaries, where key figures made damaging statements about Knight's involvement. Phil Carson's FBI investigation also supported Knight's involvement, citing his feud with Diddy. When federal agents are pointing fingers at you for orchestrating a murder, that's when you know the conspiracy theories got some serious weight behind them. But like all conspiracy theories, there's counterarguments. The Los Angeles Times in 2005 discredited parts of Poole's theory, noting that key informants like Psycho Mike were unreliable due to mental health issues and memory lapses. And a 2002 Times article suggested Big E's murder was tied to a financial dispute with the Southside Crips, not a death row plot. However, the corruption angle is compelling, and here's why. Given documented ties between death row and off-duty officers, it ain't far-fetched to believe that Knight had the connections and resources to orchestrate such a hit and cover it up. Whether you believe Knight orchestrated Big E's murder or not, what's clear is that multiple law enforcement officials, including FBI agents and LAPD detectives, believe he did. And in a case that remains officially unsolved after more than 25 years. Sometimes that's the closest we get to the truth in these streets. The Orlando Anderson MGM Grand setup. Our final case brings us back to that deadly night in Vegas, but this time we're focusing on a death that often gets overlooked in the larger Tupac story. The eventual killing of Orlando Anderson, the cat that many believe actually pulled the trigger that smoked Tupac shocker. Now Orlando Anderson didn't get bodied on September 7, 1996. He got murdered in an unrelated gang shooting in 1998. But what happened to him at the MGM Grand that Knight captured on casino security cameras set in motion a chain of violence that many believe Suge Knight orchestrated with deadly street precision? Let's set the scene real clear. The shooting followed an altercation at the MGM Grand where Tupac and Knight's entourage affiliated with the Mob Peru Bloods attacked Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a member of the rival Southside Compton Crips. The MGM Grand security footage shows something that, when you understand gang politics, looks less like some spontaneous fight and more like a calculated provocation. Tupac, Knight, and their entire crew, all blood affiliated, swarm Anderson in the casino lobby. They beat this cat down in front of hundreds of witnesses and multiple security cameras. Now here's where the conspiracy gets interesting as hell. Anderson was a known Knight, with his deep knowledge of street politics, would have known exactly what attacking Anderson in such a public, disrespectful way would provoke. Former death row associate Mob James criticized Knight for not stopping Tupac from attacking Anderson, suggesting Knight knew retaliation was likely. Think about it from Knight's street perspective. If you wanted to create a situation where Tupac would be targeted for retaliation, what better way than to have him publicly disrespect it in front of the entire hip-hop world? The MGM Grand assault was broadcast on security cameras and witnessed by hundreds of people. In gang culture, that kind of disrespect demands a response, and everybody in the streets knows it. And the response came quick as lightning. Within hours of the MGM Grand incident, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, Anderson's uncle, and a Crips member had organized the retaliation that would claim Tupac's life. But here's the truly sinister part of this theory. Some believe Knight knew exactly what he was doing when he allowed or encouraged that attack on Anderson. Knight's affiliation with the Ma Peru Bloods and his integration of gang members into death row's operations, for example, employing them as security-fueled speculation that he manipulated gang conflicts to orchestrate the hit. Knight understood gang dynamics better than almost anyone in the music industry. He had used gang connections to build Death Row's reputation and protect his business interests. The idea that he would manipulate these same dynamics to eliminate Tupac, who was planning to leave Death Row, ain't as far-fetched as it might initially seem to cats who don't understand street politics. The security footage from the MGM Grand shows Knight not trying to stop the attack on Anderson, but rather seeming to encourage it.